Hello everyone, this is Mish speaking, and today I'll summarize what was being talked about in the first Smarticles Impact meeting. So without a further ado, let's get started. So here's what we did in the first meeting. Well, we introduced ourselves, then the course overview, then we agreed on the time of the meetings as well as getting to know some basic information about negotiation. So I'll leave this slide for you to introduce yourselves. So now let's get ahead and talk about the goal of this club. About the debate club. We all negotiate on a daily basis. We negotiate with our friends, family, parents, partners, or even children. We negotiate when we rent an apartment, when we buy a car, or even when we buy a house, even applying for a job. So, negotiation is also the key to business success. No business can survive without profitable contracts, and negotiation skills are important or essential to your career advancement. So, my goal in this club is simple. I want to help you become a successful negotiator in your personal life and also in your business transactions. So now let's talk about the course overview, which consists of 4 sections: prepare, negotiate, close, and perform and evaluate. Prepare means plan your negotiation strategy, which we'll learn about first in this club. Then negotiate, and we will learn how to use key tactics for success in any debate you enter. Then the close is actually creating a contract and being satisfied you and your client. Last but not least, perform and evaluate, which is basically the end game. So now we'll talk about the club's agenda. First of all, about the schedule. We will have meetings 2 days every week. And about the timeline, well, every meeting will be approximately, an hour or even less. Third, status. All the upcoming meetings will be morning meetings because that's very productive. And fourth, the upcoming meetings, which we're going to be learning important definitions to follow through our discussions. So, as we're all on the same page now, let's jump forward to important points of this meeting. So, we're going to talk about what is negotiation, how to assess your negotiation style, and a checklist of ethical standards and guidelines that should be followed in any negotiation. So, first of all, what is negotiation? Well, negotiation is a dialogue between 2 or more people or parties to reach a beneficial outcome regarding one or more issues where a conflict exists. So, negotiation can be considered as an interaction and process between entities who aspire to agree on matters of mutual interest while optimizing their individual utilities. So now let's move forward to how to assess your negotiation style. As you may know, there are 3 steps you have to follow while preparing for a negotiation. Okay, so first things first, you have to complete the attachment to assess and understand your negotiation style. So you have to do a lot of research in order for your negotiation to be evidential. The second step is to use the assessment to assess the style of the other side. This is especially important in cross-cultural negotiations. You have to remember that there can be considerable variation in negotiation style with a culture. So imagine if you're debating with a different ethnicity, with a different religion, and they are so different from you. You have to be prepared for this. And that's why you have to do a lot of assessment and research. So last but not least, you have to do a gap analysis. So locate the major gaps between your style and the style of the other side. Focus on these gaps when preparing for the negotiation. Then, after completing the gap analysis, try a role reversal exercise where you use the style of the other side. This will enable you to better understand the other side's style. The next point is a list of 10 important traits of a person's negotiation style and approach. So, each trait demonstrates a wide range of variations which can be organized along a continuum. So, the first one is goal. Well, what is your goal in business negotiations? Is it a binding contract or the creation of a relationship? Well, the second trait is attitudes. So you have to decide what is your attitude toward negotiation. Well, is it a win-lose or a win-win situation? The third trait is personal styles, and it's very important because during negotiation you have to decide whether your personal style informal or formal. And it really depends on the situation you're in. So the next trait is communications. So you have to pay attention to whether your communication style in negotiation is direct, for instance, clear and definite proposals and answers, or indirect, for instance, vague and evasive answers. The next one is time sensitivity. So in the negotiation process, is your sensitivity to time high? For instance, you want to make a deal quickly, or low, you negotiate slowly. So now let's move to the next point, which is emotionalism. So during negotiations, is your emotionalism high? That is, you have a tendency to display your emotions, or low, you hide your feelings. And trust me, it's very important during any debate, whether political or a daily debate. However, you have to be wise and choose the right time to convey your emotions. The next trait is agreement form. So, in any negotiation, do you prefer agreements that are specific, that is, detailed or general? However, agreement building is about viewing negotiation as bottom up, which is to reach agreement on details first, or top down, which is to begin with an agreement on a general principle. So now let's jump forward to team organization. So you, as a member of a negotiation team, do you prefer having one leader who has authority to make a decision? Or do you prefer decision making by consensus? So the last important trait is risk taking. So, is your tendency to take risks during negotiations high? For instance, your opening offer to sell is extremely high or is it low? So, alongside the important traits, We have ethical standards and guidelines that should be followed in any debate. So, as you're able to see, ethical standards and guidelines consist of two sections. The first is required by law, and the second is voluntary. So, there are three main ethical standards that are required by law. The first one is no fraud, which means you cannot lie. So imagine if you are in a court, you bring some evidence, then that the evidence you're holding, that the evidence you're showing is not evidential. So you can go to jail and serve a lifetime there. The second point is uphold your fiduciary duty. So, if there is a fiduciary relationship with the other side, you owe the highest duty of trust and loyalty. So now let's move to the second section, which is the voluntary ethical standards and guidelines. So the first one is organizational standards. If your employer has a code of conduct, does it provide standards for your negotiations? That's something that you have to think about. The second standard is someone you admire. So, what would someone you admire do in your situation? The third one is family test. So, how would you feel when describing to your family what you did during a negotiation? The fourth one is newspaper test. So, how would you feel if a newspaper article in the local paper described what you did during a negotiation? So, you have to pay attention to whatever subtle act you do in any debate, because you are going to be held accountable for every word you say. The last and the most significant standard, which is the golden rule, which is treat others as you want to be treated. Keep in mind that fairness is very important to the other side. So yeah, that was it for today's meeting. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.